Hey all, so this is War 9 of the season against Nefti, and almost all of my fights this war can be done just by Reed. And there was one that I had to bring She-Hulk for, so I'm going to get to use that awesome Power Sting synergy. But then we needed somebody to take this Odin in Tier 1, and Venompool works. So the way this fight is going to go, we know ahead of time, is that he is going to be rapidly gaining Furies as we approach our first bar of power. Then we should get rid of his buffs, gain a bunch of our own as we feed our cooking meter, and the situation will reverse. That's why I used the regen boost here, basically just to make sure that even though I know we're going to get this strong regen from eating his armor, just in case the block damage got really bad. I haven't taken this fight before. It felt like a significant waste to use a power start against a simple fight like this, although that is an option. And so I just went with the regen boost because most of us have those to spare, and I just knew it would mitigate things. And as you can see, we're really starting to cook here. 20 Furies, they're not very strong Furies, or he'd already be dead. But that bleed was very sizable for not even having the vicious buff from the heavy. Yeah, very, very safe fight for Venompool. Because his special 1, the Omnom is not a nullify, he gets around the Mystic Ward that all of Path 8 has, and depending on the defender can be a really good option for a lot of the more popular ones there. So then we take Mysterio here again. I think they placed this in all 3 VGs. I know they at least placed it in Battle Group 2 because my fellow officer Nerd took his with his own rank 3 read for the first time there. And I think he said he came out with 90% health. And so that was already done when I went into this one. I've obviously taken this fight many times, had the regen going for the first little bit of block damage. But as I've said before, I particularly like Reed for Mysterio over basically all other power snack options because he controls the combat power, not just the ability power. The most annoying thing about Mysterio is always going to be his gas that he activates after he throws specials. And so if you can get him to throw fewer specials, the fight is much, much simpler. So we're now reversing willpower. We have him down to gaining half as much health. You saw that I wasn't entirely sure about that stun, and so I didn't get the heavy off in time, but then we got the next few, not a problem. We're going to go ahead and wait this out. The fact that we have to wait out the reflection gas and you don't know exactly how he's going to behave is why you throw so many heavies in this fight, even when you're not 100% sure that you need to. So right there, really love that even though I know my thumb was on the left side of the screen, got hit in the face anyway. Whatever, Reed has resistances, it's a rank 4, we've boosted properly, all of the usual caveats. So unfortunately I finished with a slightly lower percentage of health than Nerd did with his rank 3, because I'm pretty sure he didn't get hit in the face. But such it is. An incredibly safe fight, and I feel like it is worth pointing out that it is not just me being crazy and doing these things. Although Nerd is also extremely skilled and might qualify as crazy, so take from that what you will. So then we have Dragon Man here on EMP mod. Obviously, because of Defiance, we're not going to gain any buffs, therefore he is not going to inflict any shocks. We're going to blunt Power Charge, and eventually, we can freely parry, so we remove it then, but eventually we are going to reverse it. We don't have to worry about Burden of Might, again, because we're not gaining any buffs. We do have to worry about getting hit while we're in the corner. But it's really not the end of the world. I've fought Dragon Man many, many times. I'm comfortable with that evade. And obviously you can see that as we're ramping and our power stings, or as our attack rating is starting to climb, the power stings are really doing a ton of damage. On top of that, this fight allows, because of how he's throwing specials and other things, you just don't need to land a ton of hits, and so you don't need to parry for a ton of openings. And so that means that you don't really have to worry about Bubble Shield either. We did take a little bit extra block damage because it was lowering our block proficiency, but we only ever got to 7 blocked hits. So very, very safe counter there. Then we have Thing here. This is the one fight I brought She-Hulk for. Reed could have done this, but that's just not smart. A lot of Reed's damage is modified attack, which means that eventually his heavies are going to start triggering protection. There's Indomitable on this node, so we can't reverse willpower. Like, he would get through it, but it'd definitely be a waste. And since we could fit She-Hulk anyway, and I personally enjoy using her, she's definitely the way to go here. Now, you will notice, because I think I was decently boosted for this whole lane, we are going to trigger protection in some places. It is what it is. We are going to trigger that regen. We're already blunting it. That's why we used the Petrify pre-fight. That plus Despair with the slow debuff is going to reduce it. Now we have fully turned it off with the Special 2. See, there it is again. But even though we're triggering protection quite a bit through here, it seems like almost every time we crit, kind of regardless of how many Furies we have, that is why we get through this fight without a problem. Because when he throws his specials, when protection is not up, because he's not currently getting hit, we have those Power Sting triggers and they do a lot of work for us. Now, right there, again, pretty confident that I dashed backwards. I knew that special was coming. I had explicitly baited it. Whatever. We can survive one of those. We're just going to be very, very careful and deliberate and kind of not trust the controls for the rest of this fight. This did have me wondering if maybe I should have used an invulnerability, but honestly, with the way that, with compensation gone at this point, I am trying to save my invulnerabilities for fights where either I expect special 3s, or I feel like getting hit even once or twice will be catastrophic. And we ate an entire special from a half-ramped thing there, and lost less than half of our health. So, at the end of the day, I don't regret not using it there. We just have to be careful. And like I said, Power Stings did a ton of work for us. Less than, it was only about a third of our overall damage. So it's not like protection was that big of a problem for her. But the Power Stings definitely accelerate that. Because if that was a third of the overall damage, that means without that, might have taken half again as long. So very happy with how that fight went. Next up, we have Guillotine 2099, and I'm just fully expecting this to be annoying, because I usually find her annoying. She's going to throw special ones when we don't want her to, it's going to drain our power. It is what it is. We're just going to throw a lot of heavies to try and keep her invisibility shield on cooldown. If we can ramp to a special 2 and do more damage, cool. But she does not have willpower, so the only healing that we're going to be able to reverse anyway is going to show up right at the end of this fight when it's basically won. So I'm just not worried about ramping the debuffs. The important thing in this fight is that Reed has the Defiance tag, and therefore Buffet over time is not going to trigger. See, we do get one special 2 there. I forget if we get another one, honestly. But the other important thing is that she is throwing her special 1s, and so we're getting that Careful Study passive there. That makes it easier to get to any subsequent specials, whether they be 1 or 2. It also locks in what counts as 3 debuffs for the purposes of us hitting harder, makes this fight go a little faster, makes the Power Stings stronger, and so that's really the goal right there. So yeah, she throws that, and then I think we just need to heavy one more time. Okay, no. So it didn't crit, but that's why we threw the heavy, because if that hadn't killed her, but then she had gone invisible, we might have had some minor problems, so still definitely the right call. So this America Chavez we originally assigned to Captain America Infinity War on a team without Science, Cosmic, or Tech, so that he could just parry heavy with the House of X pre-fight and avoid triggering Conflictor. Had a little bit of trouble with that. It's a fight that that person has done before, but they were just kind of having an off day, I think. And so I said, you know what? I will take it with Reed. Sounds crazy on some level because Reed tends to work by applying a lot of debuffs. And you may notice that I put on all of my pre-fights despite the fact that I expect them to be purified immediately at the beginning of the fight. Funnily enough, the debuff siphoner sticks. I think I've run into before, for some reason that one applies like a split second after the suppression and the petrify. I really have no idea why that is. But that's not the first time I've seen that happen. But the reason I use the pre-fights was definitely not to get hit in the face by that special one. I think she just caught me there. But the idea was that when she threw her special one like that, it would trigger the careful study passive or debuff. It would put Conflictor on cooldown, and then we would be able to throw our special 2 and land a full set of the pre-fight debuffs, so now any future triggers of Conflictor are going to be reduced by 40% because we have the Petrify up. Additionally, that's now ramped our attack. Because the Careful Study passive counts as 3 debuffs, remember, we're getting the attack bonus from 6 of these. Now, we're not triggering a bunch more power stings because we're not triggering more debuffs, but the fight is significantly more under control once we got that very first special 2 off, and then because she has the Careful Study passive, which boosts our combat power, we were able to get to the special 3 pretty easily. And honestly, with how cleanly that went, and given the fact that I took the Symbiote Supreme before this, which did not record but was incredibly simple, and this Mangog after it, I think if we saw this particular layout of minis again, I would just take it with Reed then too. Hindsight's 20/20, but that fight was easier for him than I kind of thought it would be, obviously. But yeah, had a theory for how it went and was able to pull it off. I mean, the Defiance tag is key there. That would be suicide otherwise. But given that, you can put Conflictor on cooldown, and he can be in control. Now, the other reason we had the power start on was for this fight. I believe I said the last time I took this was with an invulnerability over a power start, because I said you can't really get this fight under control, and just in case he goes to the special 2, I wanted a few freebie hits. I don't really disagree with anything past me said, but I figured that because I felt like I needed a power start for the Chavez fight, and I think that it is still serviceable in this one. So rather than swap gray boosts, I figured, alright, let's see how this one goes with this. I'm quite confident that it will be okay. And also, being perfectly honest, I trust Reed's damage mitigation, his evades, his resistances, his careful study, to save me if something goes wrong. Also, because he's a rank 4, I trust his health pool and his attack values to make sure that the fight doesn't last long enough for me to really test that. Because I know that this is a, quote, slow fight by the standards of somebody like Corvus Glaive, but we're almost done and we haven't crossed the 90-second mark. Like, Reed is not a slow attacker. Not for the kinds of fights that he just trivializes. And so we did get the careful study up, we did get fully ramped, we triggered a ton of power stings. That's actually a way in which that the improved power gain node works in our favor, in that it means more specials and therefore more power stings. But he never got to the special 2. If he did, we would have survived 1, I think we would have survived 2, but it's nice that we were able to stay open, hit his block, and Reed slowed things down just enough that we didn't have to worry about it. So like I said, I did forget to record the Symbiote Supreme fight. That wasn't, my iPad acting up or anything. I just forgot to record it. I hadn't had coffee yet. But like I said, it was very simple. He does have a fair number of buffs that expire, so you do have to watch the falter, but basically I was just watching that timer, and if I couldn't land a heavy before it expired, I just waited it out. because Reed's debuffs last long enough, thanks to his buff, as I haven't mentioned in a while, that you can afford to do that. His control of the fight is enough as long as you understand how it all fits together. So I really enjoyed this one. Hope y'all found it entertaining. And we did end up winning this war. Not our prettiest. It was a 10-7, but that means that we are heading into the final week, 5-4. Pretty good spot, given our attack bonus, as far as us being in Masters. We're not quite locked into it yet, but we're feeling pretty good about how the rest of this season should go. So here's looking forward to that. Until next time, thank you all so much for watching, and take care.